Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome all of you. Welcome to our second session of Thursday Thought. If you weren't expecting to be here for Thursday Thought and thought you were just having breakfast, do carry on. You don't have to listen to me. But for those of you who weren't here last week and didn't meet me last week, I'm Stewart. I'm actually a local vicar, but I've also done my time in the commercial world as a lawyer and as an investigator of banking fraud. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that I've also done my stint earning a living washing dishes in a canteen. So I know a little bit about your world as well. And the format for this is very simple. I'm going to share a thought with you, and then I'm going to leave it with you. It's not anything particularly religious or anything. It's really just a thought that might help you in your life, in your work, at home, in your relationships, in your hobbies, whatever you do. I hope it will help you. So I'm going to say a few words, and then I'm going to leave a moment of quiet to let you do your own thinking. And then I'll draw it all together. I'll say peace be with you, and that's kind of the end of it. But you're very welcome to hang around if you want. I'll grab a coffee at the end, and I'll be around to chat if you want to stay and chat about anything at all. So this morning we're thinking again about the power of words. Last week we thought about the power of words to be creative. This morning we're thinking about the power of words to take control of your life, whether it's at work or at home. And although I said this isn't particularly religious, today I am going to share with you one of my favourite passages of the Bible, because it says this: "See how huge ships are navigated by so small a rudder. Likewise, the tongue is the rudder of the soul." And that's the idea I want us to have in our minds today, the idea that the tongue is the rudder of your soul. In other words, it sets the course for the whole of your life. What we speak sets the course for our lives. Now, I don't know about you, but I've got friends who have the most amazing knack of putting their foot in it. They mean well, but somehow it just always comes out all wrong. So even when they compliment you, somehow they manage to make it sound like an insult. I remember once I had a part in a school play. It was a very small part, and if you ever have a very small part in a play, deep down what you secretly hope is that you will do it so stunningly well that someone in the audience who's a bit more discerning will spot your talent, and out of everyone else they'll think of you doing your 2 lines or whatever it is. Well, this almost happened to me. After this play, this very grand lady came up with what I can only describe as an entourage. I don't know who they were, but a huge number of followers. And she saw me and she said, "Oh, I thought you were marvellous. Brilliant. It's fame at last." So, bursting with pride, I tried to summon up as much modesty as I could and stammered out a few words of thanks. And before I could finish, she said, "Oh no, it wasn't you, was it? Where's that other chap?" And I suddenly was crushed in a moment. I don't know if you know people like that who just have this amazing knack of just putting their foot in it and making you feel small. We all do it from time to time, but some people seem to make a living out of it. And in consequence, their whole lives is somehow just slightly off beam, and even their own friends and relations just find them faintly embarrassing. And they're usually bewildered as to why this is. And it's simply because the way that they use words sets the course of their lives. The tongue is the rudder of the soul. And so what that means is that what comes out of our mouths doesn't just betray what's already in our hearts, but actually it determines what's in our hearts. It controls what's in our hearts. It sets the tone for our whole life. So, for example, people who are always cutting others down to size usually end up belittling themselves. They don't intend to do that. They usually intend to make themselves look big by making everyone else look small, but actually what they do is make themselves look small and everyone else look big. By contrast, people who are always willing to share praise, say, "Oh, it's all down to the team," or, "Actually, it was my colleague who did that," or, "It was my brother who did that," they end up looking really big. They're trying to big up other people, but actually it makes them look big and makes them feel big as well. It actually, by bigging up others, we actually big up ourselves, both inwardly and outwardly, because the tongue is the rudder of the soul. What we say determines who we are. Another example, people who say one thing about you when you're in the room and something different about you when you're not there. Very tempting, this one. I think we all do it to some extent, and we do it for all sorts of different reasons. Sometimes it's because we don't want to hurt the person by saying something unkind. Sometimes it's because we're a bit afraid of them and we don't want to confront them. And sometimes, if we're honest, we're just being a bit downright nasty, and we all feel a bit better for being a bit downright nasty sometimes. But of course, what does that do for our lives? Well, it sails us into stormy waters. If we're just being downright nasty, then actually all that does is to deepen the anger in our own hearts. So we shouldn't indulge that. If it doesn't need to be said, then we need to bite our tongues. We need to train them with a whip and chair if we need to. If it doesn't need to be said, just don't say it, even if you feel you're going to explode. But sometimes, actually, it does need to be said. And if we're trying to avoid confrontation or trying to avoid hurting someone, actually we're probably not doing them any favours. And we're certainly not if we're speaking about them behind their backs. If what we're saying behind their backs is true and needs to be said, then it should be said to them, and really only to them. And though we find that difficult, just think about how it might feel from their point of view. Yes, if you say something uncomfortable to them, that's always going to be uncomfortable. But if you only say the uncomfortable thing to them, and only say good things about them to everyone else, how does that then make them feel? Now, of course, we all know that that's how it should be. That builds up trust, it nips conflict in the bud, and it bigs everyone up, it takes everyone seriously. But more than that, actually, it straightens out our own lives. There's an old saying that a double-minded man is unstable in all his doings. So saying one thing to people when they're in the room and a different thing about them when they're not in the room just destabilises our whole lives. No one knows where we stand. Even we don't know where we stand. But speaking the truth just straightens our lives out. It straightens everything out. It keeps our relationships straight. It keeps our thoughts straight inside our own heads. It keeps our emotions straight. It keeps our speaking straight. And it just straightens out your whole life. Because the tongue is the rudder of the soul. Set a straight course with your tongue and your whole life runs straight. Now, I have to say, I don't know hardly any of you here, so you can be sure I'm not pointing the finger at anyone when I say that, but I would bet that I am probably talking about everybody in this room. I say that with confidence because I know I'm talking about me, and I'm also talking about every human being I've ever met when I say this, because we all struggle with this. But like last week, there's good news here, because you have control over that little flappy red rudder in your mouth. Don't let it just flap around all over the place, you know, setting the course of your life hither and there and all over the place. Just get it under control. Say what's real and genuine and true, and just sit on the rest. Because that little tongue is the rudder of your soul. It will guide the whole of your life. So in the last minute, we're going to try and see if we can stretch this to a minute today. We're just going to keep a moment of relative quiet and for you to sit with your own thoughts. Think about the way that we speak about others. Think about the way that we use words. Think about how we express our own thoughts. And how today we might take control of those thoughts and those words and begin setting a straighter course for our lives. So let's just keep a moment of quiet. Look at the view if you want, or wherever you want. Peace be with you.